Invest in South Africa. South Africa's energy sector is entering a transformative era, combining hydrocarbon development with an ambitious renewable energy agenda. Africa is advancing more than 130 gigawatts of renewable projects, positioning itself as a regional clean energy leader. Regulatory reforms have strengthened transparency and investor confidence, while government-backed initiatives such as the 2026 Credit Guarantee Facility are mobilizing private capital for critical energy infrastructure. Technology adoption in renewable integration, grid modernization, and energy storage are also enhancing efficiency and reliability. With robust regional energy networks enabling cross-border trade, South Africa offers investors a compelling landscape across upstream exploration, power generation, and renewables, all backed by stable governance and long-term growth potential.
We will speak about how the country offers an attractive landscape for investment across upstream and midstream energy value chain. I will not be your moderator, so please help me welcome to stage your moderator, Andy Barrett. A round of applause, please, for Andy as he makes his way to stage. He will, of course, be joined by Godfrey, Moagi, who's already here. We've got Shahrukh, Mirza, who will also be joining us, Stefano, Marani, Gil Holzman, Nelisiwe, Nhlapo, Tsepo, Mokoka, Sidiso Maqubela. A round of applause, please, to all our panelists.
So welcome, everybody. This session, this is a theme that you're going to see throughout Africa Energy Week. A number of invest in different countries across Africa, but we're kicking it off today right here in South Africa. Very good introduction, Godfrey. Thank you for, as the new kid on the block, the new way of doing business in South Africa. Thanks for going through that. Video, I think you all saw, the opportunity set that is available here. Let me just introduce myself. I'm Andy Barrett. I'm a senior advisor, Global Energy, with S&P Global Commodity Insights. As you see, I'll be moderating today. I'm based in Europe, but I have what I believe is a strong affinity with the energy businesses of Africa. I've advised a lot of governments on integrated resource planning, on energy master plans. But particularly here in South Africa, I've had the privilege to serve over the last administration on President Ramaphosa's Presidential Economic Advisory Council. And during that last government administration, I was involved in supporting and challenging South Africa's programs for energy development, for climate action, and of course I got involved very much in the National Energy Crisis Committee program to alleviate what was a relatively destructive impact of electricity load shedding over the past 2 years. So during that period and continuing into this new government administration, many changes in the institutional responsibility for South Africa's energy business and its management. Not least what we've seen with the South African National Petroleum Company. Our roundtable today hopefully will illustrate how these changes will cumulatively promote investment across the sector, and how the learnings from some of the problems that have occurred over the last few years are being addressed and presumably overcome. So we've got a great panel with CEOs and key leaders from both the new institutional government arms and some of the more historic ones like CEF, which I believe has got a 70-year legacy. Is that right? And at the same time, we've got private investors in the energy sector and prospective investors in the energy sector, and they'll give us some of their stories of how these things are working and where the challenges still need to be addressed. I'm going to ask each of them a couple of questions one by one, and then I hope we can interact and help us all to understand how the South African energy sector can prove to be truly investable, but also agile and responsive, focused on growth, the growth that's needed for all the reasons that Godfrey outlined in his presentation, and also sustainable in a way that underpins what will be a just energy transition appropriate for this country and indeed appropriate for the greater continental needs as well in terms of the partnerships and connectivity that was referred to. So we've heard the story of SANPC, so let's come back to that a little bit later. But thinking of the assets that have been handed over by the Central Energy Fund, by CEF, so your role must be changing, Nhlapo. What is CEF's role now in the strategic state funding and promotion of upstream resources and key midstream infrastructure?
Yeah.
Nhlapo.
Okay. No, thanks. I saw the DG Matkubelu, we are becoming Tsepo. So he is my shareholder from the Department of Mineral Resources and
we'll come back to the
Petroleum and Mineral Resources. Yes. So I think you could see the confidence with which Mr. Moagi was actually delivering the story of, the putting together of the new energy champion, is because he has the full backing of the Central Energy Fund, which for now, he is a subsidiary, he's our subsidiary, together with the entities that are merging into the SANPC. He also has on stage the Deputy Director General, Tshediso Maqubela, who is the shareholder from a CEF standpoint. So this indicates the extent of the support that the SANPC has in relation to it being built and be formed. I think I just want to remind everyone that as CEF, we have done this before. CEF, together with IDC, supported the formation of Sasol. And we know how successful Sasol is today. So the intention is the same in relation to the formation of the SANPC. So we will play a role of ensuring that we continue to hand over the remainder of the assets in relation to the SANPC. We're currently working on the second round of financial injection into the SANPC following the first one that we did 3 months back, as a demonstration of the commitment from a CEF standpoint to ensure that the SANPC becomes successful. And the remainder of what we'll also be busy with as CEF is to continue to open up other opportunities in the market from an infrastructure standpoint, of course, continuing to also support the SANPC, creating those opportunities in different ports in the country, different gas-to-power projects that we are having and working with the SANPC on. You would know that we did purchase an asset in the form of a refinery in Durban and communicated our long-term vision and thinking in relation to transferring it in future to the SANPC. And the SANPC also has a responsibility to bring back the Mossel Bay refinery into operation, quite important. So the Central Energy Fund has still a very important role to play in incubating and unlocking projects, even upstream, midstream, and downstream.
So incubating and promoting, is that more the focus now?
Exactly, because we become then a strategic investor in the assist of the South African state, including the formation of the SANPC, to over time transfer these assets in a manner that is going to ensure that this giant called the SANPC that we are forming as the South African state has a fighting chance from the standpoint of a committed direct shareholder that also creates opportunities for it to play in the market. And I think there's a certain level of confidence and comfort that strategic partners and investors are going to draw from that. that there will be these responsibilities that the SNP is given. We've already assigned projects, we've already assigned assets to the SNPC to look after, and this assignment is going to be optimized over time such that the SNPC, as and when the asset is ready to be transferred, it is transferred.
So the transfer to SANPC is much more about active management, integrated planning. Is that fair to say? Something that was more difficult to do within the structure of CEF previously.
Exactly, and I think for us it's about rationalization and optimization of value. And as Mr. Moagi has indicated, you have assets that are sitting in 3 entities, and most importantly, people. People that work those assets, that need those assets to be optimized.
Yep.
And this is a method of lease and assign that allows us as a group to generate a cleaner balance sheet that we can capacitate.
Okay, we'll come back. I'll ask you a little bit, Godfrey, about that balance sheet and the ability that SANPC will have, not being encumbered initially with the debts that were there on CEF's balance sheet, and how that can free you up. But let's talk to some of the other institutional players we have around the table. First of all, from the ministry itself, we have the Deputy Director General for Regulation, Nhlapo. And, you know, in terms of investing in South Africa, I think the jury says that the fiscal terms generally, upstream and everything else, are pretty favorable in South Africa. Mm-hmm. But it's not to say there's still not a lot of above ground risk mm-hmm. in terms of developing upstream assets. And indeed, in terms of critical infrastructure, you know, there have been some problems there as well in terms of financing, debt management, et cetera, et cetera. So the role of regulation, you know, in this sector, can you tell us a little bit more about how that will play to making South African energy more and more investable?
Okay, no, thank you very much, and good afternoon to the audience, firstly, but also to the panelists. Let me start here and say that despite all the challenges that are there, Africa is hosting the G20 next in November. Right? There are a lot of good things that are happening in our continent, in our country, and in the sub-region as well. So we are bullish as a country about our potential in terms of oil and gas upstream, both offshore and onshore. That, there's no doubt about it. But where I think we have not been able, okay, maybe let me start with the regulatory framework. Regulatory framework is favorable. We have the Petroleum Agency that, in our view as the department, is one of the best regulators you can have in upstream. No doubt about that. But where we have not cracked the upstream oil and gas is in the area of consultation. I think we've been found wanting there. You know, there is a need to consult members of the public and so on, but I think we have not cracked it. And I think we need to sit together with the investors, the oil companies, and say, how do we approach this? Because as much as consultation is taking place, we've been found wanting on technical grounds. And it's that we need to confront and make sure that we deal with. The other issue, I think you've raised the issue of infrastructure. You've participated in the turnaround of that infrastructure on the energy side. But all signs are there that in the logistics side, things are turning around. Mm-hmm. Yes, there may be reports. Some of the reports, I think, they may be outdated. But if you look at the rail, there have been major reforms that have been introduced on the rail side. So that in itself, I think, is an indicator to any investor that this government is serious about attracting investment. I think one of the other things I wanted to say is that we've had the misfortune in our country of losing quite a lot of our refining capacity in a short space of time. So I think it's an opportunity, we see that as an opportunity for us to reinvest in refining capacity, because there are oil finds on the western side, in Namibia, and I think that oil needs to be refined. We are confident about the Orange Basin, and that oil will also need to be refined. So we can't just import everything. And we're quite excited that the SANPC is planning on reviving SAPREF. And that, on our side as the department, we will make sure that there is an intervention on regulations to support new refining in our country. Thank you.
Excellent points. I think we'll come back on that issue of refinery capacity and what can be done there, changes in the ownership, which have been done through CEF, and now potentially in the management through SANPC. But I also pick up the point that you raised there about consultation, and one of the biggest issues, I think, is getting buy-in to energy projects and managing the sustainability agenda associated with that. Some people have described it, and I won't attribute this as red tape. You can finally get over all the red tape around energy, but then you reach the issues of green tape, and the green tape can stretch an awful long way before we can get through that barrier. So integrating the approach to consultation, ensuring that there is no technical loopholes that block these projects and areas like that, I think are critical. Some other governments have been able to move forward and put in regulation on that. So it'd be interesting to see what comes, through in South Africa specifically. Let's talk with our other government institute that's represented here, and that's SANEDI. As you're aware, it's a key government institution charged under the leadership of the other ministry, I think the Ministry of Electricity and Energy now, with responsibility for sustainable innovation, energy efficiency, other key program developments, a lot of them in conjunction with the Department of Science and Innovation, I think, here in South Africa. But specifically now, and we talked about it earlier, we have the G20 presidency here in South Africa, and SANEDI has taken over the role as the secretariat of the G20 Energy Transitions Working Group. And Nelisiwe here, who's representing SANEDI, has actually got charge of that role in the secretariat. So tell me a little bit more about how you anticipate supporting that work, what impact it can have on sustainability and managing these green tape issues and other areas in South Africa.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity and good afternoon. Just to be clear, I'm not Dr. Titus Mate. I'm Nelisiwe Nhlapo, and it's a pleasure to be here. I think I'm coming at an opportune point, just as the DGG was talking about G20 and the technical challenges that we're finding ourselves that we still need to unlock. So SANEDI has found itself at a very privileged position at the beginning, actually last year when we were appointed as a secretariat for the Energy Transitions Working Group. Mm-hmm. And really, our role as the think tank of the department when it comes to energy research was to try and find solutions and also try and drive the agenda for the year, taking over from Brazil, unlocking best practices, looking at collaboration and integration, and making sure that we use our resources. As you may know, we are a key point, or a think tank of the department. So it is quite crucial for us at this point as a secretariat to look at not only the technical part of it, but how do we then latch on the lessons that we got from the previous presidencies, being Brazil, we were fortunate to be a part of it, but also bringing that into South Africa, We are also quite fortunate that South Africa is the only country in G20. I think that is massive for us. Not only do we represent South Africa, but Africa. And what does that look like for Africa? What does energy transition look like? And what does the just part of the transition really look like? So we have been really burdened with that load as SANEDI to try and navigate the agenda of the year. As you may know, we've got 3 priorities for the year. We're looking at energy security, which is quite topical. And I was glad that it was mentioned earlier that we still have around 700 million without access to energy. Right. And that is one of the things that we have been driving. The second one, which is quite interesting, controversial at the same time, is just energy transition. The CEO of SANEDI is quite particular. When he talks about transition, he's very deliberate to say it needs to be balanced. Though we talk about the just transition and driving that as a mandate for it in the energy sector, it has been a deliberate effort from the Secretariat point of view, from the department point of view, to ensure that we are looking at the just part of it. Earlier, it was mentioned that gas, it's quite an opportunity for South Africa, for Africa. And that's one of the things we are implementing as a legacy project that's coming out of G20. We're actually launching on the 4th of October a clean cooking project that looks at exactly the element of the just transition. Also part of the takeaways from the transition and also our secretariat and presidency is to look at the lessons learned from transitioning. Whilst we talk about transition, and it's quite topical, and it's important, we have been careful to look at how do we transition in a manner that does not compromise our people? How do we make sure that it's balanced? Looking at the lessons learned from the likes of Commodities, also part of the deliverable we'll be delivering to the ministers that are coming here, it's lessons learned that we took from decommissioning Commodities. Bad story or not, there are lessons to be taken from there, and that is what we've been driving. So we have really been mandated with good, tough, but I think it is an opportunity for South Africa and Africa to look at how do we leverage the agenda that we have to open up markets and also to show our international counterparts that South Africa and Africa is capable.
Good, lessons learned. I think there's a lot still for South Africa to do in terms of understanding how other countries that are more advanced in terms of developing resources have been able to achieve that and overcome some of the obstacles that are prevalent here in South Africa. So it's great that you can pull in the whole G20 experience, people like Brazil, like India, and the rest of it into this conversation. So that's a great anchor point. Let's move on then to the private players. And let's think about the Orange Basin first of all, because that is the big opportunity in terms of, we've mentioned oil, but also clearly gas as well. Potentially we can add value here through refining in South Africa, but also there's clear need for gas to be in the energy mix as the coal-based power generation starts to have to retire. And of course we have continuing growth in electricity demand here as the key motor of the economy in South Africa. So, Gil Holzman, your company, Eco Atlantic, has got a lot of experience in countries that have been able to develop petroleum resources very quickly, like Guyana, and are starting to think about developing them pretty quickly, like Namibia. But you also have licenses here in South Africa in what is the largest share geographically of the Orange Basin compared to Namibia. Tell us a little bit about your experience and how that energy can truly be made investable and available.
Thank you. I was sitting here last year, I think, with you, Dr. Mokoka. Yeah. And one of my messages to the crowd, to the panel, was that the South African government needs to get its act together and needs to be much more involved in support of the oil and gas exploration efforts that big companies, international big companies, are undertaking in the Orange Basin and elsewhere. And here we are, 1 year after. In that time, Namibia has drilled probably 6 or 7 exploration wells, with 2 discoveries just last year, the Capricornus one by Rhino and Azul, whereas 0 wells were drilled in the Orange Basin, South Africa, which 75% of the Orange Basin lies in South Africa waters, whereas only 25% in Namibia. Namibia believed to hold around, I would say, 15 billion barrels of oil as a medium estimate, that means that South Africa will have around, let's say, 30 billion barrels of oil. But in order to refine, you need first to explore, you need first to produce, you need first to bring the oil out. You look up to Namibia, maybe they will bring their oil to refine in country. I don't know if that's going to happen. In order for South Africans, the population, the government, the institutions that are all represented here, to benefit from what Godfrey said, rich resources, South Africa is rich in resources, you need to enable the international investors and the international oil and gas exploration companies to actually explore. Godfrey also spoke about quick decision making. We lost again 1 year of Namibia drilling and discovering oil where South Africa have done nothing. The oil and the gas are there. Orange Basin comprised of shallow water gas, could do like 10 times more, and huge oil potential in the deep water. We know it, we see it on seismic, we see it on all kinds of tests. We learn from Namibia. In the past 4 years, Namibia have drilled 22 exploration wells with 6 very big discoveries. In the past 4 years, no one has drilled in South Africa. This cannot continue because there's no vacuum in this world. Eventually, if you're unable to explore, if you're unable to put the straw in the water in order to test, and you know where the oil is, and later to develop and produce, so eventually the money goes elsewhere. So South Africa, now with Godfrey at the helm of SANPC, and with Dr. Mokuka and all the other institutions, must take it act together, maybe in a form of legislation, to protect the international investment that come here to explore in order for everyone to benefit. Load sheds will be gone. There are some, I don't know, foreignly funded NGOs that actually dictate the pace of how this country grows. It cannot continue like that, and someone, the industry, together with the institutions, together with the government, together with the ministers, need to come with a plan how to enable eventually South African to enjoy their sovereign right to exploit their natural resources for the benefit of this country. We are here to make this happen. We just need the backup, the support of all the people here around the table in order to do it.
So a strong message there. I think I don't need to reinforce that.
Very clear.
Let's move from the shallow water and the deep water of the Orange Basin to onshore drilling. And Stefano, your company, Renergen, has the sole license, I believe, and you're exporting that. You're actually producing now for onshore gas production. It's also associated with very valuable helium, of course, and you have further phases of development. I know it's it's been a longer journey than maybe you anticipated, but tell us a little bit about what you've learned and and what needs to happen for this to continue to develop.
Thank you. I think one of the key learnings is just the extent of the opportunity in South Africa as a whole. And yes, it's got some challenges. We'd obviously touched a little bit earlier on some of the consultation challenges. I know we had our fair share of that as well. It's the learning of the coexistence between solar panels along with drilling for oil and gas at the same time. Obviously, one of the difficult things of being the first of anything in any country is the pain of pioneering. And I suppose to that point, what I'd learned from all of this is that if I ever had the opportunity to start a new market from scratch, I'd never do it again. but it's been a great journey. South Africa's got a willingness to do it. It's got a lot of really highly educated, well-qualified people that are very tenacious. I think that there is an overall desire by everyone to get the country going in the right direction. And I think it's only a matter of time before you'll see a confluence of regulation and willpower getting us into the right state of mind with regards to promoting the industry. Do I feel as optimistic as everyone else on their timelines? I've been on this project now for long enough to know that from 2012, when my partner and I first made the acquisition, imported LNG was only 3 years away. It was only 3 years away. It was only 3 years away. It's 2025 now. It's still only 3 years away. It's kind of like the fusion game. Yeah, for the last 30 years, fusion has been 30 years away. It's still there, and I can see Shahrukh is laughing because he knows what I'm saying. There's a long way to go. There is a very, very long way to go, but the rewards are there if you stick with it.
Okay, well, that's a great segue to, well, moving from what is a relatively small player to what we have to admit is a relatively large player in terms of ExxonMobil. But the issue being the gas market and, this dream of really having a new gas market, power, ability to supply the, gas-intensive industries that unfortunately, the current supplies are going to be depleted and not available to, and the potential to add maybe new gas-intensive industries as well in this country. It's potentially a very attractive market. So, Shahrukh, I know you've been looking at this. LNG import, very important first phase of supporting the development of gas-fired power and compensating for this decline to gas-intensive uses. So tell us what investments you're contemplating in this area in South Africa and how your approach can actually advance South Africa's energy transition goals.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you to the organizers for giving us the opportunity to be on stage. Good afternoon, everyone. So I lead ExxonMobil's Global Market Development and Origination Group for the LNG business unit. And we've identified South Africa as one of our most top priority markets to seed long-term LNG sales into the country. And that means if we have to build or enable LNG import infrastructure with partnerships, we will do that. So as South Africa is moving towards its energy transition goals to 2030, and as we see the coal decommissioning happening and the build out of renewables happening, we believe that gas-fired power generation will be significantly required. We've done a couple of studies which show that the country needs anywhere between 6 to 7 gigawatts of new gas-fired combined cycle power generation facilities. And we believe that LNG will play the balancing role for that. Big kudos to Eskom and to Dan and his leadership team for enabling a more than 70% availability factor. And it's great to see South Africa come out of the ages of load shedding. But what we must ensure is that that load shedding doesn't return. And to do that, I'll give you and the audience 3 examples of how countries have enabled energy reliability, security of supply, and stability to enable intensive gas industries to deliver the GDP goals. So firstly, China, less than 20 years ago, imported its first LNG cargo. Today, it's one of the world's largest LNG importers. Singapore, completely reliant on imported energy, is now building its second LNG import terminal. And Brazil, when there's not sufficient hydro, less than 15 years ago, started off with 1 LNG import terminal. Gas to power today has more than 4. So when the hydro is not available, the gas turbines follow the intermittency and provide reliability of supply. So in that whole construct, we feel that energy security is top agenda for the government. We want to play a role in enabling the LNG infrastructure, and we want to play a role in enabling the market to grow from our global portfolio. So we've been looking at South Africa now for more than a decade. So I think it's going to come in 3 years now. But I hope it comes soon. We're working very closely with all the stakeholders, whether it's government, whether it's policymakers, whether it's private industry or power generation or large gas off-takers to make it happen. Big congratulations to the government for getting ZET to where it is today, the LNG import terminal at Richards Bay. But we believe that that's the starting point. We believe that there is going to be a requirement for more, and we want to be in that construct.
And the timing may be very interesting, I think, internationally. And we're seeing, a massive build now underway in LNG, and a lot of that will be available, probably more than the established markets are going to need in the end of this decade, early 2030. So new markets are going to be very attractive for those new areas of supply. And, South Africa is right there, in fact, on most of the shipping routes for LNG as well. So fantastic opportunity. Maybe a bit more of a challenge in terms of bringing new gas on stream when market prices are depressed, but this is a big market potential, and I think we should be looking at both imports, domestic production, and ensuring that the IRP actually locks in, the new IRP locks in this commitment to gas after a number of years of prevarication and, as you say, postponement of when LNG is going to be needed. Large-scale LNG, small-scale LNG, sustainable LNG as well. And I think all these things come to, to make a very investable gas market here in South Africa. Hopefully you share that view.
Yep.
And maybe, I know we're getting close to the end, but if we go back to Godfrey now, you've heard all these messages from potential investors. You understand a number of the challenges. What is SANPC? What role are you going to take in ensuring that South Africa can really deliver this energy security that's required here?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think for me, sometimes what is missing is conversations. And I think, South Africa, we're fairly new in this oil and gas exploration game. But when you look around us, obviously countries like Angola have been, in this game for a while. Mozambique came along. But if you look at Namibia, in their last 4 years, they've been actually exploring. But 80% of the Orange Basin is sitting in South Africa. And that for me creates a burning platform, and actually a burning platform for conversations that, we need to make sure that, we carry the investors together with us, we carry the community together with us, and we also carry even the greenies together with us. And I think, it's going to take a bit of, education, but you're going to need to engage, and actually intensify the engagement to make sure that, we all move forward together. But I think for SANPC, partnership is going to be very important. And I think, conscious of the fact that, we don't take that opportunity, that capital may go somewhere else because we're competing for capital with other parts of the world. And all I can say to you is, too early to lose patience. This is a big market. We suck in a lot of hydrocarbons, suck in a lot of energy. And I think it's actually going to be very powerful to develop energy in this part of the world. We're going to have to work together around the regulatory environment with the supplier support from our shareholders. But as players in the market as well, we're going to have to play our role to actually enable and support the government to engage the communities to make sure that we work together. And hopefully next year, this time, the conversation will be different.
SANPC has, sorry, Dr. Mokoka, they have 20% back-in right under the new Petroleum Act. Basically, 20% will be owned eventually by Godfrey and the company once we get started. So there's a lot on stake here for the South Africans, for the government. This is why Dr. Mokoka formed SANPC, exactly in order to take part in this. So I think, as Godfrey said, we need all to work together, including the communities, which we are visiting on a regular basis, the Northern Cape communities and others, the communities, the institutions, the government, the regulators, Deputy Director General, the industry companies alike, and even the green NGOs that need to understand the difference between exploration impact, for example, to production. There are different phases. We need to work together to educate, to communicate, and to come up with a solution that will be accepted by everyone. And I think we can do it. It's just that we need to.
It's a great message. Sepo, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, no, thanks. I think, so in my other life, I had a lengthy discussion with Gil on this when I was looking after the Petroleum Agency of South Africa, which is our upstream regulator in South Africa. And I think it's very passionate, like Stefano and other explorers as well, to invest in our country. And you have to ask yourself this question as South Africa, why is there such a huge interest? Firstly, because you have a fantastic fiscal framework for upstream development in this country, the best in the world. That's the first thing. So from a policy framework, that's what this country has done right to attract. Secondly, last time we were here in this conference, you had the upstream resources development bill. Now you have the Upstream Resources Development Act, which was signed by the president in October last year.
Yep.
Okay, so what that piece of legislation does is to streamline the application process into a production right, reducing the number of challenges that you can have in relation to concluding the process. I think I just needed to mention that, and we're currently hard at work to put together regulations to effect that act that has been signed into law by our president. And at times, court challenges can be viewed as only bad, and it's not all bad, because it's also a process of the development of jurisprudence in the field of oil and gas, and it helps also to concretize some of the definitions that are in the legislation over and above what DDG Maqubela has indicated, so that you define and codify what sufficient and meaningful consultation means from a legal standpoint.
That's great. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but this business is not out of time. We've identified the urgency. We've identified the fact that processes are being streamlined now. We understand the obstacles, and I think we've got the commitment to regulation and legislation now that is going to ensure that those no longer are barriers of the past, not barriers of the future. This is a massive market here in South Africa. It's available to energy, it's available to imported energy, available to potential refining, it's available to domestic indigenous production. And the taps can be turned on, I think, once we get the process right. And SANPC is very much part of that process and making sure it's going to happen. So I very much enjoyed this discussion around the table. It's given me newfound enthusiasm for the energy business here in South Africa, and I hope you share the messages and those conclusions. So thank you very much for being with us today, and thank you very much to our panel.
Thank you, Andy.